Hello, friends. It is Monday, the 27th. I hope you had a great weekend. I've got the great Jeff Jarvis joining me. We caught up yesterday live on the YouTube and the Facebooks and the Twitters and so on. If you want to watch it, you can go watch it on over there, and always have a great conversation with Jarvis, always one of our favorite guests. I had a great weekend. I'm counting down the days until Julia leaves. Just 9 days until I am an empty nester. Wow. Any advice? I will take it. But I plan to keep active and do a lot of great shows right here for you, and trying to transfer from just doing the audio podcast to doing a regular video headlines and clip show. I'm going to make another effort at it today. Can't do it without your support. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or go over and get a free and or paid subscription on Substack at StandUpWithPete. Okay, I've got your headlines and I've got a clip show. I'm going to try to do them on video and release them on all the video platforms. So it'll be helpful if you share those videos if you see them. So let's get started right now. Here are the headlines and clips I've gathered for you here on Monday. It is July 27th. 2026. July is almost over. Wow. All right. Well, first, let's catch up with what is going on in Iran. Here is the latest. Our commander-in-chief is giving talks with Iran some space, according to CNN. After diplomatic efforts ramped up in recent days, according to the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and they are saying that military operations are apparently on hold. Regional allies have not reported any fresh Iranian attacks during the pause in U.S. airstrikes. There is some rumor that we've run out of countermeasures, and so we don't want to keep escalating because we can't fight back very well. J.D. Vance and the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff raised concerns about escalating the war as Trump weighed the possibility during a meeting last week. Apparently, that's a lot of sources are reporting there's starting to form a dispute between the vice president and the president, some of his advisors, which I think is probably a good thing. The Pentagon has quietly changed its accounting for Iran war casualties, updating its database to add more than 140 wounded U.S. service members and restoring the record of 4 soldiers that were killed last weekend. They said it was a glitch, an error, but you think? Really? It's a pretty bad one. And oil fell over 5% yesterday, while gas prices ticked higher as the conflict impacts maritime traffic in the region. That is someone reporting on Iran, aggregated by CNN. Let's move on to 100 days until the midterms. Where do polling and redistricting stand, according to USA Today? With 100 days left until the November 3rd midterms, Democrats hold polling leads while Republicans maintain slim congressional majorities bolstered by recent redistricting gains and a rural Senate bias, is how they word it. But, I mean, bolstered by cheating and getting rid of and gerrymandering Democrats out of their districts. A July 23rd Emerson poll showed Democrats leading the generic ballot 53 to 42%, an 11-point advantage. Couple of other key points. A Washington Post Ipsos poll reported a narrower House for lead Democrats 48 to 45%, up from 49 to 44 in April. Trump endorsed Republican candidates have won every primary contest so far, according to Ballotpedia data, which is what we expect because they are loud and concentrated in those primaries. Republicans control the House with 218 seats versus 212 Democrats, 1 independent, 4 vacancies. 8 states, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee, and Texas adopted new congressional maps that give these Republican cheaters 10 additional House seats. And so it would have been such a slam dunk, as it often is when the incumbent's party loses seats in midterm elections. But because they cheated, it makes it that much harder. All right. Appeals court says that Trump can't impose restrictions on mail-in voting for now. This is new. And it was over the weekend, a federal appeals court rejected the regime's attempt to implement an executive order that restricts mail-in voting ahead of the midterm elections. The first Court of Appeals in Boston Saturday kept in place and under the blocked proposed changes to mail-in voting in 23 states that sued over the executive order. So I don't see that changing, but it could. How about this? Terrible news, climate change making everything worse. More than 300,000 displaced in France and Spain as exhausted firefighters battle wildfires, is the headline at CBS News. Fire crews in France and Spain continued to battle raging wildfires that have forced the evacuation of more than 300,000 people in the two countries. Authorities in France's Gironde region, where the wine region city of Bordeaux is located, issued overnight evacuation orders for 5 more localities as shifting winds and acrid conditions complicated the massive effort to limit the spread of the monster blaze. My daughter is in western France, and they're getting rain there, so I hope the wind blows the other way for those people who are really suffering. Democrats in Maine formally nominated Troy Jackson as their new U.S. Senate candidate, and so that's official now in Maine. He looks like a pretty good candidate. He's the former president of the Maine Senate, and he's emerged victorious at the nominated convention held by the state party over the weekend. So those are just some of the headlines that I've gathered for you. Let's see if I can find any more. Horrific news coming out of Berlin over the weekend, where German police said a 21-year-old man with a record of Islamist extremist activities was shot dead on Sunday, a day after he allegedly drove a minivan into people near Berlin's Pride celebrations, killing one person. The ramming attack happened in the Tiergarten Park near the Brandenburg Gate at about 10 p.m. At the annual LGBT celebrations. And so just horrible. I can't imagine what that's going to inflame and how that's going to play out in Germany and Europe wider as this conflict, this controversy of Muslim immigrants coming to and, quote, invading Europe. So anytime one commits a crime, especially as high profile and horrific as this one, the conversation and the momentum against them obviously spikes and rises up again. Just terrible news out of Berlin yesterday. So apparently Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, is going to be coming to the U.S. to go to Lindsey Graham's funeral. I guess they were good buddies. Lindsey Graham was a Russia hawk and so supported Ukraine and Zelensky apparently, but he's going to have to sit down with Trump and humiliate himself yet again and do that delicate dance with this horrific man. I guess Lindsey Graham's funeral is going to be this coming week, but apparently he also sat down with Laura Loomer. I haven't watched that interview, but it's terrible that he has to do that, but I think he has to do that, right? I think we understand what he's doing. Okay, now finally, over the weekend, our madman president went on another one of his rants. I don't want to say too much about it. Obviously, there was the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I talk about that with Jeff Jarvis coming up. But he also went on an AI posting spree, targeting all of his enemies from Iran to, quote, ex-comedians Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert. He fired off a series of AI-generated images on Sunday, targeting a slew of names of his enemies, from Iran's theocratic leaders to Rosie O'Donnell, Kimmel, Colbert. Media says the president's social media spree started with a picture of CNN's Kate Collins as trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney, doubling down on a joke he made at the White House Correspondents' Dinner 2 days earlier, and it just kept going from there. He's just so disgusting. Posted a picture of grease and mustard-stained Chris Christie fawning over a saggy-looking Bruce Springsteen as well. He is constantly embarrassing us. He is a disgraceful, disgusting, childlike man baby, the most insecure person you could ever possibly imagine, and also the most powerful man in the world. And the sooner he is gone, the better. I saw my friend comedian Chris Titus posted on Threads. There's like 3 or 4 just such bad people with so much influence. If we just didn't have them, we might be better off. It made me think of Trump, Putin, and Elon Musk. You might want to throw Netanyahu in there, I guess, as well, but doesn't have nearly as much influence and causing the worldwide damage that the rest of these guys are. And so I don't know who you would think, but I thought that was interesting. Okay, well, there are your headlines. That's what I've gathered for you from the weekend. Now it's time to get to the clip show. I made a video version of the clip show, and I'm getting better other than I didn't know which camera to look in. Screwed that up, but I sent it out to subscribers last night, posted it on YouTube, but I hope that you will go check that out and give me your insights. But here is the clip show. Video style starts with a little stand-up under it, obviously. Stand up. I think we got to kick it off with this clip from actor Alan Ritchson, who is on a podcast. He plays Reacher, but he knows I love Reacher. I put Reacher's name on my baggage tag. I use the name Reacher when I order fast food or coffee and they need my name. I love Reacher. I read the books by Lee Childs years ago. I even love the Tom Cruise Reacher. Anyway, Alan Ritchson was on a podcast, and apparently he really goes nuts. And you've probably seen this already, but many of you sent this to me, and I want to watch it with you now. Real good stuff.
And he goes, maybe you should let go of that stuff. And I'm like, let go. I was like, everybody else should have it. Everybody else should feel like I feel.
The world is on fire.
Like, oh man, about the way things are and the abuses that are happening. The Epstein files. The fucking Epstein files. God damn it. Where are they? It's a fucking law, bitch. Show it. You fucking pedophiles. I shouldn't say fuck because I'm a Christian and people are going to go like, how can he say fuck and he's a Christian? Because that is something that should make you want to say fuck. Yeah. You know, sorry, God, I'm sweating now. This is my fucking politics, dude. I would fucking railroad these fuckers. I would get those Epstein files out in 2 seconds. Yeah, dude. 2 seconds. Fucking move out of the way. Like, get out of there. I don't care what room they're in. Bitch, move. Like, give me the fucking manila envelope. I will get you the Epstein files. Sorry.
You got my vote. Whatever you want to run for, you got it.
Don't you want to see what's in there so that we can hold people accountable? These fucking rapists? We're just cool with it? That bitch has the keys to the nuclear. He's like all up into 13-year-olds. Like, dude, what? Go to jail. Go to jail. All right, what are we talking about?
Alan Ritchson delivering good stuff. All right, let's take a listen to and look at Troy Jackson. You can look at it now because I'm also doing the clip show on YouTube and everywhere else. This is the new nominee for Senate up against Susan Collins in Maine. Of course, he's a logger and former head of the state Senate there, and this was him over the weekend.
Running to protect Social Security and Medicare. They're not going to touch that. And give every worker the freedom to organize a union without intimidation or retaliation. And I will fight to restore abortion rights nationwide. I'm going to stand shoulder to shoulder with our LGBTQ Mainers and stand up to Donald Trump and ICE when they attack our workers, terrorize our neighbors, and threaten the freedoms generations of us fought to secure.
There you go, Troy Jackson. Wow, did you hear that vocal tick he's got there? I love that. Oh, my God. After everything he said, he's like, oh, it's fine. It means nothing. It's just me judging and being a prick and commenting on that little throat clearing, nervous tick. But somebody on his team should probably make him aware of that, and he should try to not do it as much. It's just my advice. Let's go, Troy Jackson. Beat Susan Collins in Maine. Get the vote out, everybody. All right, what's next? I'm not the biggest Charlemagne the God fan or Andrew Schultz fan, to say the least, but these guys do have an audience, and I am going to give them credit when they get it right. And I'm just glad that people are hearing this. So let's take a listen to what Charlemagne had to say.
The best communicator in the Democratic Party is Zoran Mandani. Not only is Zoran Mandani saying all the things that need to be said, he's actually establishing a track record in New York City of getting things done.
Yep.
And that shit he did with Netanyahu last week. Listen, you don't have to be a Democrat and adopt that rhetoric, but boy, let him cook. Cause that shit is impactful. Cause he on the campaign trail, he was saying he wanted to get Netanyahu locked up because he said Netanyahu is a war criminal who has a rest warrant out there from, what's the organization, the international, what is it, Chris? ICC. Chris is shrugging his shoulders because Chris, for whatever reason, doesn't understand politics. This is good politics, Chris. It's a good stunt. It's a good strategy. It riles people up. It gets the people going.
Charlemagne recognizing Zoran Mamdani's talent. Sounds like his producer, the guy behind the camera, didn't necessarily fully agree, but I think he's dead on there. So let's move on. How about this from the great Rick Steves, who's an American treasure and turns out a real smart commentator on our culture and our politics. Take it away, Rick.
Here, that's the Reichstag. And Berlin is so steeped in history, and you got to be thinking of their nightmare with fascism. And, you know, Hitler was elected to their parliament. And he was part of a coalition, and his party was in the minority, but he ended up legally becoming the chancellor and then the dictator because he just wanted to be dictator for a day. And there was a handful of people in here who opposed Hitler, refused to do the proper salute, refused to kiss his ring and wear his uniform. And these are the Kinzingers, the Liz Cheneys, the Mitt Romneys, the Charles Schumers, and so on of German democracy in 1932. Well, 95 of them or something like that were arrested as soon as Hitler took power. These are the representatives and the senators of Germany that were sent to concentration camps, the first concentration camps in 1934. And what is striking to me that I just learned is most of these, generally people died after a couple of years. These people were kept alive until 1945. 1945. Hitler kept them alive, the leaders of the political opposition against him, until it was pretty clear that he was going to lose the war. And then, in 1945, these courageous politicians in Germany who stood up against fascism were murdered by that guy. Think of what can happen to a society that doesn't take the threat of autocracy seriously and doesn't value how fragile and precious democracy is. Oh my goodness. I learned so much when I travel, and I'm so thankful for that. And I bring those lessons home. Rick Steves in Berlin.
Thank you, Rick Steves in Berlin. Good stuff. Really love that guy. All right. I also am really starting to love this guy with a lot of the rest of you. It is Jon Ossoff, the senator from Georgia, on the campaign trail over the weekend. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
The price of admission to the president's service seems to be proof that you're willing to lie for him. Have you seen it? Maybe you saw Jay Clayton, the president's nominee to lead our intelligence services, refuse again and again while he was under oath to affirm Donald Trump's defeat in 2020. Or Pete Hegseth before the Senate this week, refusing to recant his lies about the war. And there's something uniquely despicable about lying a nation into war. Treating citizens as fools and the selfless patriots who serve as pawns. Remember, earlier this year, they claimed there was an imminent nuclear threat. After last year, they told us the Iranian nuclear program had been obliterated. Do you remember? Both times lies. On day 12 of this war, the president said, quote, "We won." On day 14, Hegseth said Iran's military was, quote, "destroyed." 5 months later, we're still bombing. Americans are still dying. Iran still has its uranium. Hormuz is still closed. I challenge anyone to defend it. A war built on lies told by a White House utterly absent figures of integrity to dissuade the president from his delusions. And Ahab, too, surrounded himself with yes men. And it led him to reckless war and to his downfall. As he weighed going to war, King Ahab consulted his 400 court prophets, and they assured him unanimously of victory. Just one man spoke truth to power, the prophet Micaiah, who warned the king against war, and for it Ahab imprisoned him. Says Ahab of Micaiah in 1 Kings 22:8, "I hate him because he never prophesies anything good about me."
Wow.
So Ahab silenced dissent and proceeded to war, and it was the costliest mistake of his reign. Now, in the kingdom of Samaria 3,000 years ago, those living under Ahab's misrule had little recourse. But in the United States today, the power of the presidency is nothing compared to the power of the people. Nothing.
There you go. Senator Jon Ossoff out of Georgia, nailing it again. Real good stuff. A lot of people also talking about this clip. For some reason, Hunter Biden sat down with Nick Fuentes, the young Nazi kid, and a lot of people talking about this one. So I thought I would share it as well.
common ground of how much of a shithead Donald Trump is. We can get there. We can get there. Okay. What I don't understand is how you didn't recognize that in 2016, and how you didn't recognize that in 2020, and how you didn't recognize that in 2024. Because Donald Trump hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump hasn't changed at all. Donald Trump has been Donald Trump since he came out of the womb of a woman that was an immigrant to this country. And so, what I want to know, though, is that I don't know how we get past this idea that the biggest problem that you have that with your personal situation and how you extrapolate that to the situation of other white kids that are your age, that feel disenfranchised, that feel left out, that feel they don't have a shot at the American dream, is because of black and brown people, because of Mexicans, because of Venezuelans, because of Haitians, it's always other, Nick, with you. It seems to me. And I've listened to a lot of the stuff. It's always them. We need to build a wall. Where's the wall, Nick? He never built the wall. Why'd you vote for him in 2020? Why'd you vote for him in 2024?
I didn't vote for him in 2024.
Okay. My point being is that whenever you identify your problem as being something that is other, that you can point to, that's a minority, that is a group of people, that's the Jews, before, remember, all of us, it was the Irish Catholics who were all committing the crime, who weren't allowed into bars, who weren't allowed into, because you know why? Because they were dirty, poor, non-Europeans. They were Irish. Every time it's wrong. Every time history has proven that to be wrong in the United States of America. Every time. Inclusion has been our greatest strength. Diversity has been our greatest strength. And I hear you talk about this idea of white culture. What fucking white culture are you talking about, man? What
Shakespeare, Dante, Mozart. We're in Philadelphia, the founding fathers.
Yeah.
That's your white culture.
How about the Count of Monte Cristo? Would you consider that part of our white culture?
Sure.
Okay. Well, it was written by a black man in France in the 1700s.
In a milieu of European civilization.
So what?
You're picking out one example. It really
I'm not just picking out one example.
It really is.
Nick.
Listen.
Nick, I'm not. I really am not.
Hey, guys, I think we're reaching what's called a rock in a hard place. Let's talk about it.
Well, let me respond to this, because you're telling me I'm always blaming the other.
No, Nick, for real. Here's the thing, is that the way that you talk and throw out these historical facts, which, by the way, aren't fucking facts. Okay?
Which ones aren't facts?
As it relates to the Civil Rights Movement in 1968, and the reason why we're out in the problem that we're in is because the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964. Dr. Martin Luther King was killed and shot by a white racist, white supremacist in 1968 on a balcony of a motel. That's the root of our trouble, because an entire people that have been disenfranchised and enslaved for over 400 years.
We're sick of hearing about that, though. It's 2026.
You may be sick of hearing about it, but you know what? They aren't. And I'll tell you what, Nick, here's the other thing.
Get over it. It's America.
Okay, but Nick, you can say stuff like that, okay, without having to say it like that.
Everybody loves Hunter Biden now. The guy is really outspoken. I love that he just didn't let Nick Fuentes speak there on Nick Fuentes' show. I give him credit for going on that show. He sounds pretty smart to me there, Hunter Biden. So there you go. Okay, next up, it's author and speaker Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who's been on the show several times. Thought this was a great clip I saw over the weekend. I don't know if it's old or not, but wanted to share it.
Never see these authoritarians as infallible.
Right.
They spend a lot of money and effort to boost their personality cults. That's what Trump's face everywhere, all that crap is about. And it's because they live in fear of us. And Trump is already at the bunker stage, which I call. He's talking, the Washington Post did an investigation of what has he talked about the most for the last 4 months. Well, guess what it was? His ballroom and his bunker. And the ballroom is where he gets his adulation, but the bunker is where he's going to hide. And Putin, all these guys have their bunkers. And so he talks about the military hospital. That's where he's going to hide and flee. So they live in fear of us. And so we have a power. And that's why they're trying to take away our voice through taking away our vote. And so never, ever give up on elections. And I like that there's the Democracy Defender Initiative, accompanying people to vote, all these kind of mutual aid and assistant things. We're going to need to do that.
There you go. Ruth Ben-Ghiat just predicting that Trump is going to go into a bunker. I haven't heard that much about a bunker. I haven't heard him talking about a bunker. I'm not sure exactly what she was referring to there. Was it just the ballroom? All right, finally, I've got some comedy for you. It is brought to you by one of my favorite young comedians who was a intern on the Colbert Report when I worked back in like 2010, maybe. I don't know exactly when he was there, but he's become a monster comedian. Very, very funny guy. I love his stand-up, and I wanted to share a little bit of Sam Morrill with you right now.
This is scary, what's happening in Iran right now, obviously. I was talking to my friend. He goes, well, they hate their government. And I was like, yeah, but we are bombing them a lot. I've been in some toxic relationships. If you bombed and blew up my apartment, I don't think I'd be like, finally, I'm free.
All right, there you go. Those are the clips that I've gathered for you today's clip show. Send them over to me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. And please go watch the video version and let me know what you think and if it's worth your time or anybody's time. Maybe you don't like it, but maybe somebody else does. I don't know. Let me know. This is where I got to go to find more audience and be able to keep this going, of course. And I'm happy to try to make a strong effort doing it. Yesterday, I caught up with great Jeff Jarvis. Always love when I get the opportunity. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of media criticism. He defended AI and even data centers. So I'm sure not everybody will be pleased, as you aren't always and shouldn't be with me or my guests. But Jeff is one of the best. I always love catching up with him. He's got a new book coming out. He's on a million shows. All his information is in the show links. Follow him on Blue Sky. Let him know that you heard him here. And we were live yesterday. You can watch this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And let's do it right now with Jeff Jarvis. Right. I like to do my own Sunday show. And I've got the great Jeff Jarvis joining me to go through the latest. And there was a White House Correspondents' Dinner. I don't know if you knew that over the weekend, but it's always great.
What did you do Friday night that was more important than watching that, Pete? Huh? What, did you have a date or something?
I had to put a light on outside in my backyard, and I dug a hole, and I put my head in it, and I tried to fill in around the soil like my head was a plant.
That's more sane than watching. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. Lots to talk about with you, and let's just, I guess, dispense of it or with it, because they rescheduled it, of course. There was that attempted shooter that sadly some of my progressive friends fell into and sold as a conspiracy theory, which is ridiculous. Anyway, they canceled the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and they rescheduled it in a venue about a fifth of the size. Trump spoke for almost an hour. Traditionally, the president does like 20 minutes of jokes written for him by comedy writers, and he bombed. He did jokes that bombed very badly in like the cringeworthy way where he himself acknowledged that they sucked. You watched it. Why? What do you have to say for yourself?
Because I somehow knew you were going to call, and I had to serve your audience. And,
Thank you.
And because I knew you wouldn't.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't believe I stayed up till midnight. I'm an old man watching that shit. It was worse than bombage. It was utter insanity. It was the man is completely knucking futz. He's in compos mentis. He's insane. And the problem was he was that in front of White House correspondents. It's their dinner, right? And did they report it that way the next day? No, not really. They reported that he bombed or said this, but the Wall Street Journal said he gave a wide-ranging address. And I don't care if they had irony beneath that. That's not the way to report this. And the Washington Post and the New York Times mentioned that he said some nutty things, like terribly insulting things to Caitlin Collins and others. But Peter, it was worse than that. It was the man is completely nuts. This is the man who's in charge. We've got 3 more years of this, and we know this. But the problem is that our media don't report that honestly. They don't say, man, he was off the charts insane last night. He was scary how nutty he was. People on social media are saying if he's your grandfather, you're going to take him in and commit him. But our media aren't saying that.
It's really important to always remember that we can't normalize this, but it's also difficult to pay attention to it, acknowledge it, and react to it without sounding like we're being repetitive, like it's a broken record. But it's so – I'm torn sometimes about talking about it. I was talking about this with listeners the other night at the Hangout, but I think we have to cover it, and we have to do our best to talk about it and cover it in a way that we can get the point across about how – terrible this is and abnormal this is, and that it's day by day. We have to keep talking about it in such a way that people will stay engaged in, right? How do we do that?
So I just read a really good book called Hotel Exile about a hotel in Paris. It's in 3 acts. It's nonfiction. The first is the German and Jewish and communist emigres from Germany who happened to use the hotel as a meeting place. Then during the war, the Nazis who took over the hotel. Then afterwards, it was a respite for Jews especially and political prisoners returning from concentration camps. So you got this vision of all 3. And I recommend the book. The first third about the emigres and dissidents, it's very French, it's very communist, it's very Soviet. They started a committee for this and a committee for that. And I was thinking, Pete, I wish there were a committee to defeat fascism. Only someone could get together who could scream in the ways that our media don't scream about what's going on, and scream in the way our politicians most of them aren't screaming. And take something like the White House Correspondents' Dinner and say, oh my God, why are we in wars that we didn't anticipate? Why is the economy in craps? Because there's a nut job in charge and malign people are using him. And we've got to get more alarm about this. That's what I say every time I'm on with you, and I don't want to be the broken record. But I want somebody to be alarmed. I want somebody to scream besides a couple of podcasters on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no, that's really well said, and I appreciate the historical perspective and World War II. But we also have a pretty recent scenario or example that we could follow in Hungary, where they repudiated Viktor Orban. And much of, I don't know how much, I'm not paying that close attention, but they certainly seems like their new leadership and new government has done a lot to repudiate and try to recreate not only the government, its reputation, but the media, the kind of state media as well. And I don't see that kind of Project 2027, although I've heard some really good ideas, but I certainly don't hear Democrats talking enough about it on the campaign trail. They're mostly talking about affordability, and that's good. But also, I don't hear enough about the reaction like yours from other media critics, and maybe I'm not listening, that would prescribe such a kind of restoration from this fascism that we've been living under to try to recreate what's lost or what should be perhaps vis-a-vis the media, renewable energy, and obviously holding responsible those who created these horrible corrupt crimes. All right.
And healthcare and USAID and education. And
FDA, CDC. I mean, it's, all of it.
And let's not leave the WHCD without saying that it shouldn't exist.
The White House
they shouldn't have this
Association
dinner.
Or the dinner?
The dinner. They should not have the dinner.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of us who have been screaming this for ages, another broken record. And the fact that they sat there and Kristen Welker is buddying up with Stephen Miller, it says much about them. And they shouldn't have the dinner. It's a conflict of interest. I don't care who the administration is, but especially with this administration, to go there. I don't think the journalists were yucking it up because there was nothing funny at all. His only joke, the first joke of the night, was that the beef they had just eaten came from Kennedy running over a cow and bringing it in. That was the best. That was the best.
The rest, there was so many terrible jokes that weren't even jokes,
or horrible insults to people.
Horrible insults. But what do you make of, like, Kristen Welker was caught on video chatting with Stephen Miller, and it looked like she was laughing. I don't think we could hear what they were saying. But why is that so egregious? Why should that be seen as malpractice in this case?
Listen, if she runs into him at the White House and has to suck up to him sufficiently to have a conversation with him, okay. I don't think being at the White House is a terribly good place to learn stuff, but okay, I'll stipulate that, Your Honor. But with the knowledge that there's cameras all around and the knowledge that there are photographers all around and you're being watched, and what you do in that moment matters. And the New York Times, to its credit, has stopped going to the event for years now. And I think that every journalist with any pride shouldn't have been there, should have walked out, shouldn't be palling around with these people. There was no point.
More than fair. More than fair. I like to think that if people did see at least even the clips of his performance, they would be reminded about how terrible of a person he is. I mean, he made this joke about Caitlin Collins' appearance. He doubled down or tripled down. He's probably said it 4 or 5 times that she should be smiling, which is like, the most hacky sexist trope that telling women to smile. If you haven't learned that women, you're not just simply whatever you think of it, you're not supposed to do that. If you haven't learned that yet, or maybe he knew it and that's why he did it, he's such a misogynist monster, and he always reminds you of that around women. And he reminded us last night, and I'm glad that her colleagues and her network, CNN, stuck up for her. But still, just say something more about his general misogyny in that comment if you want. And the fact that he, insulted her by saying that she looked like a trans woman. So she's also insulting the trans community as well.
So he said he looked like Dylan Mulvaney, and today on Truth Social, so-called, he put up a AI image of Collins as Mulvaney with Bud Light. Yeah. So he throws down as many bowling pins as he can.
Attacking trans people still, let's just remind people, is the weakest thing that you could possibly do. I mean, attacking any community that is like suffering and being targeted, marginalized, and minimized in any way, you look like the weakest person, and you're trying to make them look like they're aggressors, but really you just look like the biggest cuck in the entire cuck house. But go ahead.
Well, and when media talk about it, they're just playing into the agenda that's been set by the right wing. There's no issue with trans people. There's no issue with trans people in sports. That's ridiculous. And those who say, well, the Democrats better get their act together, better figure out what to say about this. No, that means that you and media are playing along with the right wing and with that agenda being set by them. No, stop. Stop.
I was talking with someone about this over the weekend, and they were like, I do have an issue with trans people in sports. And I was like, and this person was a coach of girls, a female coach of girls. And all I said was, because I didn't want to argue on the issue, I was just like, of all of the things that matter in the world, of all of the things, that ranks behind like guardrails and your local community and stoplights and class size and testing and so many. It's such a red herring. You have to be able to notice what is a distraction, a made up manufactured story to get people to motivate people to vote and to help, in this case, almost always right wing media people get ratings and clicks and sell subscriptions. But it's not actually an issue. As you said, the trans issue, even if I conceded and somehow the trans kids in sports, I would say that caring about that for more than a second, more than about a billion other things in your local community, much less your nation, shows that you aren't really thinking, and you've fallen for the worst types of distractions. I'm done talking again.
And it's not just today. It's been this way for a very long time. I reread recently an Atlantic piece that James Fallows, the brilliant James Fallows,
I love
wrote.
James Fallows more than life itself.
He's the greatest. It was in February 1996 when he's excoriating media, why Americans hate the media. And it's a really good piece in which the bottom line is that reporters insist on politicizing everything. They insist on turning everything into politics and who's going to win and who's going to lose and handicapping and ignoring the issues that matter in people's lives as a result.
Yes.
Yes. And you're not going to, if you let the talking points of the far right pass for issues, then you're doing the same thing.
We certainly did in my community. That's how we lost the school board a few years ago. We won the 2 seats back. We're still in the minority, but I think normalcy or sanity will reign at some point here where I live. In Mike Lawler's district, by the way, Jarvis.
Can you get rid of him, please?
Doing our best. Kate Conley is the Democratic nominee in our district, and he's going to be tough to beat. I think he will be beat. You also wanted to comment on Elon Musk and his historically accurate Odyssey that he made. I guess the controversy is people like Elon Musk and others are very upset at what is generally perceived one of the top filmmakers of our generation, Christopher Nolan, and the way that he cast the Odyssey with some trans actors or none.
A trans actor and then a black woman as Helen of Troy.
Okay.
And that's not historically accurate. Of course, he was historic accuracy in a epic poem about monsters and gods.
So wouldn't it be similar argument to say that historical accuracy on Snow White? And,
right. It's all absurd. Or Santa Claus.
It's a fairy tale. You can do whatever the fuck you want with it.
It's incredibly stupid.
So
it's
he's mad about
racist and sexist.
he's mad about that. And over the weekend, I saw this interview he did with the Economist editor-in-chief, which is pretty interesting.
So first, can you play video or no? Do you want to?
I can. I can try to find it.
No, well, there's another one here. He had Grok, or somebody had Grok make a trailer or a video. It's in the list I sent you.
I did watch it, and I think I can share it.
It's absurd. It's completely absurd. Laughably stupid. Which
I watched it because I was preparing to talk to you. Here it is, and it's so bad that it made me mad at you.
I'm sorry I wasted 2.5 minutes of your life. I owe it back to you.
I mean, I'm not going to play the sound because I can't figure out how to play the sound, apparently.
Yeah, there's dialogue in it. It's completely stupid. You'll see right in that scene, which went right by, Odysseus has an airline earplug in. I guess it was a rough flight over the sea. And so they're going to make, he's eating a Pringle there. It's also stupid. It's also ridiculous. Calypso doesn't exactly look historically accurate herself. It looks like she came down from Stockholm.
The point is that he was critical of this Christopher Nolan version of the Odyssey, and he then had his AI on Twitter create a version. We just shared it. It's so very bad by every metric, and also clearly makes the case that AI is not ready to recreate or replace traditional film. Certainly not Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, I guess. People still seem to care about that. That's an interesting other argument, I suppose. I mean, Chris Nolan doesn't like AI. I think he's even using old-timey cameras, right? And film and all kinds of other traditional ways.
I wouldn't say it's old-timey because it's film, though. It's
but
IMAX
he shoots
70
in
millimeter.
real.
That's pretty modern stuff.
He shoots outside in real places. Like sometimes, the argument is that AI, you won't need to spend money on locations, for example.
Well, which I find some potential benefit in. And there are creators who can't afford to go through the gauntlet of Hollywood, can't afford to raise the money, who want to tell a story. In the Tribeca Film Festival, I don't know if we talked about this before, there was a film that was entered that was made about Iran that was AI generated because if any real people had been it, it would have risked their lives. But you're right. So then Musk went on to do an interview with Zanny Minton-Beddoes, editor of The Economist, and humiliated himself, but he has no sense of that. He's just going on about what a hellhole and crime-infested rat home London is. And he hasn't been there in years, and she lives there, and he just uses that fake accent of his to act like he thinks he's smart. He's just unbearable, completely unbearable. Mind you, SpaceX is below its offering price. It's 50% off its high. It's 12% off its offering price. Tesla's stock is way down. He's the world's richest man, which says more about the economy and the stupidity of markets than anything else. He's also an idiot.
It's pretty wild to think about how much Elon Musk and Donald Trump influence our lives. And sometimes my dad hates when I talk about Trump, when we're just casually talking. It's like, oh, here we go. I'm like, he's ever present. But the two of these guys in particular, they do everything they can to insert themselves in the things that you think they wouldn't be, from the World Cup to every – I mean, granted, the president often does something or shows up or whatever, but the way that these two guys just have influenced so many parts of our lives, it'll be interesting to see how history writes it, but it also needs to be talked about every day, because when they are out there making the moves that they're making, they are impacting our lives, our families, our communities in a great way. I mean, Elon Musk, for example, these data centers, so much needs to be talked about. With all of them, we need to learn about all of it, right?
Yeah, I think the data center thing is overblown. Not if it's going in right next door, and not if they're using gas power generators and polluting your air and making noise. No, but we've had data centers ever since we've had the internet. We've had data centers forever. I think that people feel the need for something material and tangible to revolt against in the name of technology, and so I don't think even if we defeated data centers everywhere, and even if the stupid Musk plan to put them in space happens, that's not the real point. The real point is about control of technology. I'm going to nerd out for a second here, or 2 minutes, on what happened in this last week with AI in a few ways. The Chinese have open weight, open source models. And the American AI companies hate this. They can't stand it, obviously, because it's a lot cheaper to run a model from China, and you can run it on your own computer. You don't have to use the hosting services and the tokens and all that of the AI company, right? And the question is, what's China up to here?
Let me just read a headline from the AP. Cheaper, open, and intelligent. Chinese AI models gain ground as they make inroads in the U.S. That's Associated Press. LA Times. Cheaper, open, and intelligent. Chinese AI models gain ground. It's the same. It's an AP report, I guess. Probably that the LA Times just reposted or paid for. So it's a big story that we all need to try to wrap our heads around as U.S. weighs response to Chinese AI industry urges against broad open weight restrictions. Go ahead.
So what's happening is China, there's been two ways China can go. One way is that they are undercutting the American AI industry by putting out these models that are much cheaper, or even you can run for free. You can just download and use for free. For 99% of what 99% of people want to do with AI, it'll work. The other rumor that's out there is that China may choose to cut us off from AI, just as we cut it off from chips and other things. It seems that open source is the way that they're going here. And Kimi K3 from a company called Moonshot is open weight and just as not as powerful, but, a few months behind our powerful models. Now, this drives OpenAI and Anthropic crazy. However, it gives opportunity for us to save money. It creates competition to those huge companies. And interestingly, Jensen Huang posted a letter that now has 50 signatories, including basically all the AI companies that matter except for Anthropic and Amazon, saying we support open weight. We support this open source movement. This is good. It provides competition, more openness, and so on. Now, at the same time, nerd moment continues for one more minute. There was a story this last week in which an OpenAI model supposedly hacked, I put air quotes around that, a Hugging Face, a platform for AI. It didn't really hack anything, but there was moral panic headlines all over about this. And what they were doing is they were testing the model. The model was told to go find something. It did what it was supposed to. It doesn't have any sense of right or wrong or hacking or anything else. It just did it. Media went crazy saying, oh, it hacked. And what's happening here is OpenAI is trying to say, look at our model. It's so smart it can hack. Uh-oh, that's dangerous. We better hold back. We better not have open source, open weight models. We better have control of this. So in the meantime, Ted Lieu puts out an AI kill switch bill this last week, in which he's arguing that the Secretary of Homeland Security should have the ability to shut off AI. I don't want that. I don't want government alone.
I like that. Just I never heard of it until you mentioned it, and you don't like it, but it sounds good to me.
No. Why? Because do you want the Kristi Noem and her successors? Now, Mark.
I love Kristi Noem. Mark Wayne. I think they're great. I think they're both pretty good. Why are you?
Do you want them to be able to say that they can shut off a technology that matters to us?
I think they probably couldn't figure out how to do it.
Well, Lou is giving them the opportunity here, and that's the problem. People will say, this sounds good. Sure, yeah, get rid of it. It's dangerous.
Okay, so you're saying under the wrong hands, a kill switch is bad, but under the right hands, a kill switch sounds like a good argument or a good policy argument.
Well, that should be the company that put it out. However, this is where the panic gets worse. If you have an open weight, open source model that you can download and run locally, there's no way anybody has a kill switch on that. And so you have some talk saying that, well, the government should outlaw open weight, open source AI. Well, that means that we're stuck in the hands of Anthropic, OpenAI, and the Trump administration. That's a bad thing. By having open weight models, we have competition to them. We have autonomy on our own. Now, could they go do bad things? Of course they can. Of course they can. It's a general machine, just like a printing press. And you couldn't tell Gutenberg that you can make this machine, but don't ever let a Martin Luther use it. That'd be bad. You got to design it so that he can't use it. No. It's a general machine. We better get used to this fact that people are going to make bad use of good machines. They're going to make good uses of machines. And you can't change it at the level of the technology. You've got to change it, as we always have, at the level of the human beings and their responsibility.
You're such an AI apologist. Who's paying you?
I wish.
Let me move on to another important issue, though, that I did want to ask you about, because I feel like it's not getting enough attention. But the Wall Street Journal reported last week that Trump somehow on its own can unilaterally make this deal with another foreign country, in this case his good friends in Saudi Arabia, to allow them to enrich uranium. And apparently they signed a deal, and Congress, there's not really any checks and balance on it, which is a question I really think we need to ask ourselves, but also talk about it in the wrong hands. But also he then later kind of reneged on the deal, which is like him, where he said, well, also, if you do want it, you're going to have to sign on the Abraham Accords. So who knows what's going to happen with this.
But it's actually signed. It's already signed.
It's
a
signed,
binding legal document.
I just heard some reporting on it this morning because, then he came out and said, well, if they want it, they have to sign the Abraham Accords onto the Abraham Accords. So I don't know what the status of the deal is, but you shared this with me from Judd Legum. News outlets that covered the U.S.-Saudi nuclear deal without mentioning that Jared Kushner, top Trump foreign policy advisor and son-in-law, is getting paid by the Saudi government. Huh.
A long list of places. They also aren't mentioning Khashoggi. This is who we're handing a deadly weapon to, a weapon of mass destruction. And let's play this out a little further. Israel's already a nuclear power. Pakistan and India are threatening nukes in their part of the world. Now, Iran's going to end up with a nuke. It's just because Trump has blown this so much when he tore up Obama's deal. Now Saudi Arabia, their enemy, is going to have nukes. He's just destabilized the world even farther and into the future. And I was on with our friend Julie Roginski on Friday, and she was screaming about how this was underplayed in media. This is a destabilization of the entire world order, and there was no big deal. Yeah, we mentioned it, but another Trump deal. He makes deals.
Makes deals.
Yeah.
For who? In whose interest is another good question. What is this one you shared with me? The great Jeff Jarvis sent me a great list of articles that we need to talk about or issues and criticize, especially when it comes to some of the mainstream legacy media. This Washington Post article, knives are out for J.D. Vance and the GOP. His allies say it's a coordinated app. The vice president has faced a barrage of attacks recently that are unusual for the intensity and how early in the political calendar they're taking place. What is this about?
It's just one small example of screwing up media. If you bring that back up for 1 second so I can read the line. So in the story, they said, I'm trying to remember now what they said. There it is. Okay, now it's going to come into focus. The sustained public hostility from Vance's own side of the aisle is unlike that faced by other vice presidents in decades. Do they have amnesia? Can't they remember that they wanted to hang the prior GOP vice president? I mean, just that kind of reporting just drives me bananas.
That's what your angle is.
That's all. It was a minor point. It's a minor point.
That's fine. I didn't know about this. Like, who's coming for J.D. Vance? What is going on?
Well, that's the interesting thing is that it's trying to figure out the forces that are at work here, because Trump seems to be leaning toward Vance and blessing him. That says, speculation. That means nothing because he changes his mind every minute. It doesn't matter. But that's one side. So now you have forces that are going against him. They're also going against Peter Thiel. There's that whole arm of the world. And Thiel is the one who made J.D. Vance J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance worked for him. Thiel backed him. And so now Thiel, I think some are fearing Thiel's power here. Interestingly, Axel Springer, the German publisher, owns Politico and Business Insider, and now The Telegraph, which wants to make an American brand, the right-wing UK broadsheet. They're giving Peter Thiel their Democracy Award, which is just horrible. Matthias Döpfner, who's the chairman of Springer, who owns most of it now, controls most of it, is right-wing, and he's kind of the Fox of Germany. And so Thiel, he's got loony things. He's got his hideout in New Zealand. He's now bought a mansion in Argentina.
Yeah.
He thinks the U.S. is dangerous. He talks about the Antichrist in Rome. He fights the Pope. And so this is the kingmaker behind J.D. Vance. So that is pretty freaky. That's pretty scary. You have the Republicans infighting. Now, normally, the press doesn't really report on that kind of infighting because there isn't much of it. They love to report on Democrats in disarray, trademark chatbot, pitchbot, but it's rare they get a glimpse of fighting with the GOP because they are all in lockstep.
Overwhelmingly so, and it's crazy to think that that's still the case, that they're still in lockstep at this point after everything that we've seen. Sorry if I'm glitching and having problems.
There was a MSNBC or MS Now reporter, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was to give credit, who did a great segment last week, stopping GOP congressman after GOP congressman, and they were pretty much all men, no women, and asking, is there anything that Trump's done you've disagreed with? And they looked like they were afraid for their lives.
I saw.
Perhaps were. And so not one of them said anything negative to Trump. Not one thing.
That might be the case in terms of the Republican Congress right now, but it certainly doesn't seem to, if you're paying much attention to public opinion polling. I don't pay a lot of attention to polling, but a lot of those things do cut through because we're starving and so thirsty for some kind of understanding of what could ever break the fever. Not all of us. I certainly am. Like, what changes people's opinions on things? And if you look at these public approval ratings, they certainly are pretty interesting compared to, obviously, Republican elected leaders that we're talking about. But the guy is underwater on every issue, including immigration, and it would seem to matter in a normal, traditional campaign. But what we're up against now is this guy and a handful of his cronies trying to cheat and steal the elections again, and then gaslight us and tell us it was being done to him, of course. How much attention are you paying to all of these election security stories? Of course, he desperately wants to pass the SAVE Act more than any kind of other thing, including the bipartisan housing bill. But he wants to be able to cheat. He is stealing seats in Congress, obviously with the gerrymandering scam, Supreme Court's decision. He's got it, so many things on his side at this point. But still, so many of us despise him so much. We have to make it too big to rig. I get that. How closely are you paying attention to how much of it are you concerned with, or do you think it's, a little bit too overblown?
Scared to death. It's minority government. It's ruled by the minority. And so the only way they can stay in power is to cheat. And they've shown that they have no morals. They have no standards. They have no sense of right or wrong. So they'll do whatever it takes. And it's going to happen because they've gone after so many local elections over the years that they're going to have the secretaries of state who are in charge, who are going to play along. And I fear that they're going to do everything possible. I mean, look what they did last time, right? They tried not to certify the election. They will have local states not certify the election. And they'll cut off the opportunity to just see the process through. They'll screw with the mails. They'll screw with voting places. They'll screw with voting records. And New Jersey didn't do the world any friggin' favors by screwing up and registering 6,000 non-citizens to vote. I'm sorry to all America for what my state just did.
The DMV accidentally did that, and like 400 of them or something voted. It didn't affect the outcome of any election, but when we're sitting here saying this has never happened and then the DMV makes this mistake, it's certainly,
Right. And when you want proof of citizenship and photo ID and all that kind of stuff, it just opens the door for the bad guys to do that. And it's a screw up. It's a huge, huge screw up.
Some people say that Democrats should just stop fighting, even though we all know that this is a manufactured issue, that there isn't a problem with our elections and that states are overwhelmingly really good at this. And there's no record of any hacks or vote changing anywhere ever. They're not connected to the internet at the polling places and so on. But some people I've heard suggest that Democrats should just concede and give in to some part of the SAVE Act, specifically the voter ID thing, just to get ahead of it and move on and get rid of the issue. But of course, in the past, when that's happened, the issue doesn't go away. They just make it even worse. So not only do you now have to get an ID, you also have to scan your retina and give us a drop of blood and a lock from your child's hair.
Well, and every woman who changed their name when they got married or divorced finds themselves in a mess.
It would disenfranchise. That's why the argument isn't good. It would disenfranchise too many people that are likely Democratic voters, which is why they're doing it in the first place.
Elections have worked just fine for 200 years and 250. And we should be defending the institution as it is and the local control of the institution. There's no irony. Irony is dead because the Republicans who would be against federalizing things are trying to federalize everything under a president. I've never understood their affection for the unitary executive. That is just philosophically.
I've had this discussion before.
Yeah, it's not philosophical. It's opportunistic.
Well, I feel like
and
it's not.
authoritarian.
Yeah, the idea that I think the argument that you're making is that it's strange for conservatives, much less liberals, to want to give so much power to one person based on your respect for the founding fathers, the Constitution, what they were trying to get away from.
States'
and
rights.
just the simple argument that if you give that power to someone that you like, they could lose it, and someone you don't like would get it, and that's one of the main arguments. But we also, I think what it does, that the reason you're confused about it, or why we might be about it, because it seems contradictory to their established values, is they don't care about anything but winning, taking power by any means necessary, and then doing whatever they can to hold it. That's why it's fascism and not conservative.
Exactly. Well, very well said, my friend. Very well said. And so that means you cannot fight it on the old terms.
Great point.
You need the committee to defeat fascism, because that's the enemy.
Yes.
The enemy is fascism.
Yes.
It's not, and even the corruption, and the corruption is gargantuan. That's bad. That's terrible. We should be using that to impeach him the 8th and 9th and 10th times. But that's not the great danger.
Maybe we need
to the republic.
Maybe we need a new way to talk about it, because I'm so thankful for the work of historians on authoritarianism and experts on fascism like Tim Snyder, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, and so many more, Jason Stanley, and everybody else that's been talking about it, identifying it. And it's so much of it has unfolded. But maybe we just need a new word or a new way of talking about it, because it isn't too often it is compared to the Third Reich. And I think there's a lot of comparisons to be drawn to Mussolini and previous fascists. But we have a new world that we're in, and this is America, and it's a different system, and the players are different. It's still fascism. It still defines it well. But to convince people and to get them over to our side, maybe, Jeff, we need to come up with a new way of talking about what they're doing. Because I also don't like the word corruption, and I don't like the word democracy. I want to try to communicate about exactly what's happening without fascism, corruption, and democracy, because I feel like it loses a lot of people that don't really understand necessarily, not what the words mean, but just how pernicious they are in our system or any previous one.
So take the Pete at Thesaurus off the shelf there. You got any candidates?
No, I don't. I was hoping you would. But Hannah
Arendt, who I often show off quoting on the show, totalitarianism and authoritarianism. But those have lost their bite.
This corrupt, it's this, I don't know, there's a lot of young people that I guess buy into this thirst for having it just your way. I mean, you could argue that nuance is dead in political conversations or relationships or anything really, but you could make that argument now about the left too, because there's this purity tests and so on, and we can't seem to have conversations with each other without canceling. And
I think that's kind of, I don't disagree with you, but I also think that we have to beware of media's take there, which is they're trying to constantly pit us against each other. The New York Times had a big story today about the head of the party throwing his phone. And the other way to look at this, and it's not hard at all to change the framing, is that we are in fact the Big Tent party. We have so-called moderates. We have fairly conservative liberals. We have democratic socialists. We have people who adamantly support Israel as it stands, people who support Israel but not Netanyahu, and people who don't support Israel, all in the same party. And that's what democracy is about. And so what we should be emphasizing is that all these people are welcome because we have a common enemy here and a common cause to defend, which is our democracy.
I think that's
really, in a way, Kamala Harris did that, right, by bringing in Republicans to the fight, and she only got crap for it. And it didn't work.
I think this movement around the Democratic Socialists, at least many of them and most of their ideas, and with the standard bearer and lead communicators and representatives being Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and this wonderkind mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, that is really become appealing to people who weren't even paying attention to politics, much less were originally maybe critics or wary of him because of what they'd heard. I feel like these ideas are starting to win more and more people over. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I think we have to be cautious we have to remember the Bernie bros and what they brought us in the past. And one could argue that Bernie brought us Plattner. I don't necessarily blame him for that, but I think I'm not ready to hand over the entire strategy of the party there. However, they're right a lot of the time. I agree with them on policy again and again and again, and that's what matters in the end. And I mean, not like every single soundbite from every single one of them who associates with it, that doesn't matter. They're fighting for affordability. They're fighting for health care. They're fighting for democracy and saving our elections. And so I'm all behind that.
It's one thing, though, to also demonize and demagogue an idea, as Republicans and right-wing commentators always have. They've always called Democrats socialist regardless. But now they're calling them communists and Marxists, whatever. But it's another thing to watch New York City implement ideas, and that's why I've always hated the labels, especially for people I want to draw into the political conversation, young people and other apathetic people. Let's just talk about the thing. Like, the problem is rats. The problem is
right.
And so what's he going to do about rats? The problem is that you can't afford to send your kid to daycare and also have a job and afford the necessities of life in the city. And what are you going to do about that? And when it gets demonized and demagogue and called socialism and all these other things, and it scares people, but when you see success and results, which is what the nation seems to be seeing, and certainly he's getting a lot of undue media coverage, then that's a different argument. And it's convincing, I think, to people.
So what do you think about his stand on Netanyahu, arresting Netanyahu, and that whole incident? Was it overstepping? Was it performative? Was it legitimate? What's your thought?
I thought it was pretty nuanced take of it on it, and I've always agreed with those who give a lot of credit and credence to the ICC, the International Criminal Court. I wish we could agree on having some standard bearer, some actual world justice system, and it was in fact just. I don't think that's necessarily what the ICC is, but there's no doubt that Netanyahu is a war criminal by any measure of war crimes. I don't care if you're a legal analyst or not, but the way that he handles it, like, I don't know, he's asked so much about Israel and the Middle East, and that's just not his job. He's the mayor of New York City with a lot of people who care deeply
Which
about
I think was his argument, and I agree with everything you just said, but just to play devil's advocate for a second. One could argue that by threatening to arrest Netanyahu, knowing that he couldn't, or knowing that he'd be stopped, that was not about New York. But then again, he's the mayor of the city in which the
to be fair, I
exists.
think you're mischaracterizing. I don't think he threatened. I think he was asked by a New York Times reporter in that podcast about what he would do. It wasn't something he was overtly talking about ever. He's never been like, if this guy ever comes here. And I think his answer, we could go play the tape, but I think his answer was like, the ICC says the guy should be arrested. So it's up what. And
I have a responsibility to do that. On Friday's podcast with Julie Roginski, she doesn't like Madami very much. And she fears that there could be unfortunate civil disturbance should Netanyahu appear in the city. And that it would be Mandami's fault. I don't know that I agree with that.
Oh, well.
But also the New York Times had a headline yesterday basically blaming Mamdani for the knife attack on an Asian man and a Jew wearing a kippah, and essentially blaming him for it, saying, well, he's complaining about Israel and this is what's leading to that. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like complaining about ICE, and that's what's leading to them being threatened. And
do you have a view on Michigan race, Senate race?
Yeah, I love that Said guy. What's not to love? He's sexy as hell. I'm a sucker for, and I realize that politics is perception. I'm a sucker for a well-packaged candidate, including I was all in on the whole Graham Plattner stuff before any of the controversies. I was like, this guy's great for a Maine candidate. And Said, knowing Michigan as I do pretty well, seems like he's very representative of a lot of people. He's got an amazing background as a physician. And to me, it seems like the woman is a lot of Haley Stevenson, I think her name is a lot of what her critics say she is, and taking a lot of dark money. And obviously Israel is a huge story in Michigan. There's a lot of Jewish Michiganders, and there's a lot of Muslim Michiganders.
A lot of Muslim Michiganders.
More Arab Americans in Dearborn than like anywhere else in the country or something like that. And they're not all Muslim. A lot of Arab Americans are even Catholic and Christian, as my ancestors were, that came to America from Lebanon. But there's the Chaldean, the Catholic Arabs in Michigan, and they are, I think it's fair to say they're fairly conservative. They're almost MAGA. I don't know if anymore. But anyway, I like him. What do you have? I like
him too. And I really like Mallory McMorrow. And I liked her a lot more than Haley Stevens. And then the two of them, I think McMorrow did the right thing by dropping out and saying, okay, this is going to complicate things. So here's two.
Yep.
Though I could argue the opposite, that she would have canceled out some Stevens votes and that would have let him win and wasn't under pressure. So I don't know. It depends on the case. But you look at what happened in Maine where everybody dropped out basically of attention. And so the winner became clear. At some point we have to come together behind someone. Here in my district in New Jersey, we had 6 or 7 people in the primary for the House. And that was too many. And it complicated things. Yeah. I don't much like her. I'll take her over the Republican easily. But I like him a lot. Yeah. I think we need more people like that who are going to get voters excited.
Gretchen Whitmore endorsed Haley Stevenson.
No surprise.
Created some controversy there, obviously. But yeah, like you said earlier, it is a very diverse party and comparing one of the worst things we do in political analysis or thought in America is comparing the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. It is football and baseball. It is wildly different group of people. It is so concentrated and homogenous in the Republican Party in America. Rural, white, Christian, and then we could talk about the views. Obviously, there are exceptions. But the Democratic Party is like the rest of us.
And the fact that we argue with each other is exactly what should happen. That's public discourse. That's discernment of policy. That's democracy.
Yes.
That's the right way to do things.
Absolutely. All right. Before I let you go.
Are you eating any lettuce?
Yeah. I try not to worry about the recalls and stuff. And I don't wash my berries or lettuce on a normal day. Like I don't wash my produce ever. And I know people find that just absolutely terrifying to learn, but I have a weird issue around eating and cooking. I'm working on it at 50, trying to make food at the center of my life and treat it with the respect it deserves. But I'm the worst. I think I'll die. I'll probably die of all the pesticides and all the berries I've eaten, I suppose. I don't know.
I have quite fondness these days for the Popeyes chicken wrap.
You go to Popeyes?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you get a chicken wrap?
Yeah, it's great, but it has lettuce in it. I'm not sure right now.
Do you wash all of your produce?
When we buy bagged lettuce that says it's washed, we take their word for it.
Yes,
every morning I take my raspberries before I put it in the yogurt. I do rinse them. Yes.
Do you have the same thing every single morning?
Pretty much.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, probably. Well, I never used to eat breakfast. So in the pandemic, I started eating Raisin Bran dry every day.
What the fuck?
I know people think it's insane, but I don't want soggy Raisin Bran. That's just disgusting. Disgusting. I like it crunchy. Then I switched to eating yogurt with raspberries on it.
Why would you eat Raisin Bran? Why would you just have granola? That's basically granola. It's a trail mix. Raisin Bran dry is trail mix. Why don't you just add a couple extra things to it?
Yeah, then you get those other crazy things in it. No.
I love that. Okay, so I get it.
What do you have for breakfast?
I don't eat breakfast most of the time. Why did you start? Because of the pandemic and your lifestyle change, or
health?
I was
home. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to get control of my my relationship with food and have a better healthy. I'm about to be empty nest, in like 12 days. And
this is where I'm privileged that I have a wife who's A, very smart about nutrition and responsible about it, and B, a wonderful cook. And I can't cook worth a damn. I cannot. I'm useless. I'll go get takeout food. That's all I can do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel a little bit seen on that. But, I'm privileged in that I got a nice kitchen and all the amenities, and I should be able to.
Do you like cooking anything?
No, I hate it.
I hate it, yeah.
A lot.
Well, it's the timing that drives me nuts. I can never get the timing right.
The timing of cooking? Like how long?
Yeah, when you have multiple things you've got to do, I can't keep that straight.
Oh, that's interesting.
You saved my soul.
We should start a group. I want to get better, though. Like I
do too. I wish I could, but every time I try, I fail.
Well, I'm going to do it. Maybe you'll be my accountability partner. I don't know why I'd pick you since you're no better than me.
Yeah, I'm useless. I am useless. I made cacio e pepe, which should be really easy to make. It's 3 ingredients. It's pasta, cheese, pepper. That's it. And water.
You screwed it up.
I screwed it up. It got gloppy. Yeah.
I love talking to you, man. Thank you for your perspective on all of these things, including the personal relationship with food, which I'm learning a lot about from a lot of other people.
One more for a minute. So when I was a young man trying to date in Chicago, I wanted to impress a young woman, and I had her over for dinner, and I got my mother's recipe for a pumpkin chiffon pie. And she wrote it out for me, and it didn't make any sense to me. It was 1.5 C period canned pumpkin. I thought, well, cans come big and small. So it's just a can of pumpkin. Okay, all right. So I bought 2 cans of pumpkins. I put in 1 can of pumpkin. I put in a half a can of pumpkin. And then it occurred to me, that was cups. So before the internet, I had to calculate how many ounces in the can would have equaled the proper amount to equal 1.5 cups. And I had to take, luckily the pumpkin glommed up. So I was able to extract enough pumpkin to make it appropriate. That's how bad I am.
That's a good one. And before the internet, everything was harder. Now, I mean, you have less of an excuse now about how to make even elaborate things because you can watch someone make them. Someone in the chat, in the live chat said preference shaming is a thing. And I just got to say this, like,
in defense of dry raisin bran.
No, but I, as a person, as a comedian, as someone with humor, I love to make fun of everything and everyone.
Yes.
And I'm not going to stop doing that. But I do want to put out the caveat, just to be clear, like me making fun of, in this case, the fact that Jeff ate Raisin Bran dry. The reaction should be, the mature reaction, if we want to be like real, is I don't give a flying fuck what you think, Pete. Make all the jokes you want. I like what I like. But
I understand someone trying to imagine dry Raisin Bran in their mouth, thinking, how could I do that?
But I want to have fun in life. And like when someone, I always make jokes about people's salad preferences. And when someone puts strawberries or berries on a green salad or nuts, even I say they're a sociopath. Now, do you really think that I think there's anything wrong with putting a strawberry? No, whatever you want. If you put it on my salad.
In fact, you're revealing more about yourself.
Exactly.
Because you're a psychopath for thinking that's strange.
Exactly.
Well, goat cheese and strawberries on a salad is a wonderful thing.
Whatever you want, but I'm still going to make all my jokes.
Do you eat goat cheese? Where do you stand on goat cheese?
If you think I'm shaming you or if you feel shamed about it, I'm not going to, I'm just want you to know I'm okay with that.
And you're going to keep doing it, and you should. That's why I love you.
Yes. Yes. Everything you wear, the way your hair lays on your head, the books behind you in this case. Like this is what I do. I used to want to do a show where I'd come into people's homes and offices and just make fun of everything. And by the way, that's how I made my name in comedy and in SiriusXM. I went to the CEO's office and I didn't kiss his ass. I made fun of all the shit in his office. I did my show in his office. He got it. It worked. I'm a dick.
What was the craziest thing in his office?
Golf clubs.
Yeah. In his office.
Yeah, I made fun of him for having them, for golfing, for having them there and virtue signaling that he golfs, the whole thing. Whatever. He shouldn't give a shit, but we're having fun. I'm not.
Amen. Amen, brother.
As always. If you don't get that, I'm sorry. But
and you know what? It just worked. Leave Me Alone, Mike, is going to try the dry Raisin Bran.
See, there you go.
A convert.
He and you are terrible people. Well, you're missing out on a lot of joy. I'll dial it back a little bit. You're not a bad person. You're just missing out on the joy of milk. You don't like soggy things.
Oh, I hate soggy.
But it's not soggy. There's a moment, Jeff, between crisp, dry, and soggy that's perfect and delectable. That's the moment that you got to get it in your mouth. You mix it up a little bit.
The other truth is I don't like milk.
That's different. Oh, what are we talking about? Orange juice on your Raisin Bran. What do you think of that person?
That awful. Pineapple on your pizza?
Fascist.
Yeah. Great.
Jeff Jarvis, everybody. Plugs?
Oh, yes. Plug, yes. My new book, Hot Type. The Magnificent Machine That Gave Birth to Mass Media and Drove Mark Twain Mad is out August 20.
There you go.
Hardback and audiobook. Go to jeffjarvis.com where you can order it.
jeffjarvis.com or you can order it anywhere. Thank you so much. Can't wait to talk about that.
Thank you, my friend.
And anything else the next time. All right, bye, everybody. Thanks for watching live. And there is today's podcast. It's now segmented with headlines, the clip show, and the interview. And everything should be available on YouTube and Substack and everywhere else. Please tell your friends to subscribe there. Can't do it without your paid subscription at Patreon or Substack. And you can always pay more if you want. And you can send money anytime you want on Venmo is the place to go. And there should be a link to that today and every day's show notes. Thank you guys very much. I should be live today at 11 o'clock. I'm going to be the guest of Susan Demas on Lincoln Square. She was my guest last week. This week I'll be their guest. Looking forward to that and more. Looking forward to connecting with you as well. As always, on the Discord platform. And
when the tyrants taunt you and the sirens teach you, better stand up. Stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge. Let the weak flee. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right. We got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand